All right, Super High Roller Bowl 7, as I said, and you've heard me say throughout this series, I came in with a very specific strategy designed to take advantage of things that I felt people were misapplying to a certain degree. Stuff they learned from solvers, and solver says this is the right way to go, so this is what I'm going to do. And I'm thinking, all right, so I'll get into this a little more in depth, but like, just because solver can do it, don't mean you can. And I'll tell you why when we get to the spot. But the other thing we did was we came in with a strategy where we're going to do some limping, a decent amount of limping, a good chunk of limping from all positions, including the button. So we are on the bubble, right?
Fit for a king, he says. Ace-5 suited on the button for Negreanu now. Surely it will be opened. Goes for limp, highly unconventional on a bubble, fair enough. And for Bonomo with just south of 40, ace-10 suited, let's observe the procedures. Perhaps limps behind, perhaps a big declaration. Odd little spot here, Negreanu coming with the limp. Does just raise, fair enough, 4x.
How often does one expect Negreanu to be taking this line in a trappy manner? In this spot?
No, 705 back.
It's hard to say, Ali. He's out there. They're flowing with him. It's very hard to speculate from the booth. He does.
I'm on the button. I got a beautiful little ace-5 of clubs. That's a raise, right? Oh, cat jam. Oh, whatever the Landon does with that. Cat jam. Ace-5 suited. I can't take it. Oh, my God. It's like he gets, it's like he's, never mind. Okay. Ace-5 suited. It's a raise on the button. Absolutely. In my situation, totally fine. I do have, however, Nicky P in the big blind. Okay. So Nicky P is a big stack as well. So I don't necessarily want to blow pots against him, right? He's going to be able to, apply some pressure on me as well. I'm slightly behind him, I believe, at this point. Not that it matters much. But again, this goes in line with my strategy throughout most of the tournament, which was to have some decent, some strong hands on the button too. Like not just limping with 10-8 offsuit, which we will, but also some suited aces and things like that. That, if I limp, can call raises, but are put in much more difficult positions when you open and get 3-bet because the sizes are going to be much larger. If I limp for 1-bet, maybe the small blind or big blind makes it 5. So now I'm seeing the flop for 5, but I'm seeing the flop. I'm in position. I have a hand that plays pretty well post-flop with the flush draws, wheel draws, and of course, hitting the ace. Whereas again, if I would have, if you come in for 2.2, someone's going to make it 9x, maybe 8x, and now you got to you might have to play a big pot in a marginal spot. So, as I said, we decided to limp, which again in this position ICM stuff, they would tell you definitely don't do that. You got to take advantage of Bonomo on the small blind who's short, but he's slightly ahead of Orpin. So again, he's really handcuffed, and he should be very, very careful from this position. Okay, against two players who are comfortably, chipped up in myself and Nick Petrangelo. So I limp 4 to the 20,000, right? And Bonomo from the small blind raises to 80,000, which is 4x with the ace-10 suited. I don't like it at all for a lot of reasons, mainly because of the bubble. I think that it's probably better for him to just call there rather than raise to 4x, because his 4x raise is just going to never get through. Nick's going to call a decent amount, but I'm certainly, because of the dynamic, right? Because he's under pressure, there's so many boards where I just get to win on, if the board runs out, whatever, 5, 6, 7, 8 or stuff like that or whatever, he's just in a tough spot. I can represent so much more stuff, if you will, because his range is supposed to be pretty narrow in this situation. So had it been me, I probably call here with the ace-10 suited. He elects to raise. I'm sure it's fine. I think it's incorrect, but hey, everybody plays different. Now, of course I call, right? I actually have a hand that I can cat jam. Oh, stick it in his... I could absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that play, but I don't like it. It wasn't aligned with the way that we plan to approach this specific event, which was to take flops in position.
He does go for call, 200 in the middle, flops the wheel draw. Not a great flop for either man, naturally.
All spades, king high. Bonomo in front, but this really is not his board. Try telling that to him, though, as he goes to work on Negreanu, and now the ace-5 of clubs stops looking so good.
Okay, now the flop is king, 4, deuce, all spades. We don't have anything, right? We have a gut shot with ace high, but we don't have a spade, we don't have a pair, we don't have much of a hand. So there's 200,000 in this pot. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but solvers they love on these monotone boards. What does monotone mean? Monotone means all the same suit. 3 spades, 3 hearts, 3 diamonds, whatever. On these monotone boards, solvers love using a small size, okay? Part of the reason solvers like a small size here is because they're going to be betting often, and solvers, unlike humans, and this is where I think people go wrong, will play the turn and river perfectly, right? So these bets have plus EV for them because they will play every turn and river perfectly, okay? You're not. Nobody is. No human being is going to play these perfectly. So from a functionality perspective, you look at the sizing and you say, all right, well, I'm not really doing much with this. I'm short stacked. Like, what folds am I getting? I'm probably not folding any hand, legitimately. Even if I had 8, 9 of hearts, I would call this bet. The simple idea of potentially taking this pot away with the ICM pressure on later streets. So it's a really brutal spot to just throw out that extra bet, especially when you're short on chips and, you need to be, when you have ace 10 of hearts and the board comes this bad, like there's no turn card that's going to come that you're like happy about if I call. None. You have no real, powerful plan going forward with ace 10 of hearts on this board. There's no universe where things go really well for you on turn and river, unless you decide somehow to just bluff and pray and, be out there with no idea. This is why being in position is so powerful. This is why the limping strategy worked so well, because especially against these small sizes, he's just making it easier for me to float with a wide range. And that's very difficult to play against, okay? I don't care who you are, right? How much do you hate it when people just always call you, man? You bet these little dinky bet, they keep calling you in position. Now a turn card comes. I don't know, do I bet? Do I check? It's like so difficult. So, obviously, the play here for me is to call, right? That's fine. But I got a better idea, yo. I got a better idea, okay?
He goes for a quarter pot, and I will say this about Bonomo. One thing he really has going for him, he has shown a propensity to not be scared to bust on the bubble, so it allows him, look at this, Ali, we have a meaningful reach from Daniel.
Nice, 200,000.
Excellent sniff here on the heels of the wheel draw, and barring something obscene from Justin. This will do it, Ali. Bravo, sir. Take it down. Next hand. Interesting.
This one's for you, Serge. Limpin' is pimpin'. He gave me that this morning. Limpin' is pimpin'.
Who gave you that?
Huh?
Who told you that?
It's my buddy Serge. I've been known for many years. Came up with that in our hockey chat. Limpin' is pimpin'.
Shout out, Serge.
Ace-5 of clubs on the all-spade board.
Shout out the hockey chat.
That's pimpin'.
Limpin' is pimpin', baby.
He bets this 50,000. He has about 700 or 800 to start the hand. So I elect to raise to 200,000. Okay. Now, what are the value hands that I would do this with? King, sure. Flushes, set of deuces, set of fours, king 4, king deuce, some bluffs as well, like the one that I have. Potentially, I don't even think actually I wouldn't be raising with like king, queen, king, jack with a spade. I probably wouldn't be raising I probably don't raise kings here very often, just like a straight king. Probably just going to call. So really, I don't have a ton of raises here, but the issue is for him to defend against what I'm doing, right? What do you think the best defense is against what I'm doing here? It's to re-raise me on these flops more often, which puts your stack in risk, which puts your entire tournament at risk, which puts your bubble opportunity at risk. So I'm putting all the pressure on him for his stack without having to. I'm not putting it 800, I'm putting it 200. Assuming that if he continues for the 200 or decides to re-raise, that his hand strength is going to be, at worst, ace high, a better ace high with the flush draw, right? So let's say he had ace jack with ace of spades. You might say, screw it, YOLO, let's go, right? A king, aces. If he has queens, jacks, or tens with a spade, is he just going to call and hope, right? So for a relatively cheap price, just 200,000, I'm essentially calling. I'm requesting, as Ali Najad would say, I'm requesting his stack, if you will, or I'm not. But you have to make the decision now. So for me, with now there's 250 in the pot after his $50,000 bet. I'm risking 200 to win 250 that he just folds on the flop, and I do also have a hand that has some backdoor equity or some front door equity. If I hit a 3, I make a straight. An ace could be good, right? I'm not banking on it. So this is a hand where I'm certainly going to call, right? But I decided to take the aggressive initiative and put him to the test for because he's not gonna have enough hands that are just like, oh, I love this flop. Ace king, cool. Aces, kings, ace high flush draw. That's it. There's no other hands that he's going to be like, woo, sweet, right? Because here's the thing. I can have flushes, tons of them, all the flushes. Almost like so many more, just tons of flushes I can have. I can have way more flushes than he can, right? So when you think in theory, who has more of what? I'm limping 7-9 suited. He's not raising 7-9 suited in this spot. I doubt it. Maybe he is, but I don't think so. So it felt like an opportunity for me to take advantage of the small sizing. Now look at this. Imagine for a second if Bonomo, instead of doing the solver approved play, right? Solver says do this. Imagine if he did it a different way, where instead of betting 50,000, he bets 100, 150, 125, something in that neighborhood. What do I do now? I don't have any more wiggle room. I can't float. That's too much. Raising is now I'm might have to raise, and then if he moves in, I have to call. I put myself in a really bad spot. So the function of this small bet works for a solver because the solver will play the flop perfectly, the turn perfectly, the river perfectly. I don't think there's human beings in the world, none of them, even the top guys who play online, that will play that size correctly out of position, especially in a bubble situation like that. So I guess the way that I would describe it for a lot of you who study, okay, this is going to be important, and my wife will kill me for telling you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. A lot of you study pre-flop. Great. Very important stuff. Then you study what hands to peel with post-flop, on the flop. You're all right, it says here to peel here with this hand, that hand. It says here to bet this size with this hand, this hand. Okay. Here's the problem. The solver's telling you that's slightly plus EV because the solver's going to play perfectly on the turn on the river. You're not. So while a solver may be earning 1 big blind per 100 or whatever by making this peel or this call in a marginal spot, you won't. You'll probably lose, right? And especially in tournaments, when you're thinking of ICM in these marginal situations, you're going to be just punting. Even though it says, oh, nope, it says I should call here, bet the small size, all that stuff. Solver says, you're not a solver. You never will be, right? So you have to make some adjustments as a human. And one of the ways that you can adjust, especially in tournament poker, is by giving up what appears like to a solver maybe a small advantage, a plus EV thing, because it can play perfectly, and say, you know what? I can't. I know my limitations as a human, so I'll let go of this really marginal spot so I'm not in a confounding, difficult position on the turn or the river where I'm I have no idea what to do. Solver knows exactly what to do, but you're never going to be that. So a lot of what you learn, take with a grain of salt, right? Ask yourself deeper questions, okay? Ask yourself, why does the solver say it's okay to call here? What is it doing? What is it planning? How is it going to defend against that? And think about that on a deeper level. And if you can't formulate a plan that is you think is a winning play, then just get out of the situation, right? Don't put yourself in that spot. So anyway, I could go on for days about this situation because I see it so often in these spots with the small sizes. Understand, bottom line, that solvers will use tons of really small sizes, and that's if you can perfect it and do it well, it's great for you. But understand this, it's going to complicate the game for you. It's going to make the game much more complicated. And if you're a beginner, intermediate, just trying to get better, one of the ways that you can avoid these pitfalls is by upping some of your sizes in these spots, even when solver says small is correct. Sometimes I disagree.